The bullet tore through the water tank a foot above Zara Bennett's head, and she returned fire before the spray hit her shoulders. "Contact! East wall!" she shouted, already moving. Dawn had barely cracked over the compound, and Rashid Omar's men were putting up more fight than the intel promised. She cut across the courtyard low and fast, boots kicking up dust, and dropped behind a stack of crates as another round chewed the ground where she'd been. 2 shooters on the east wall. Her unit's answering fire drove one down. The second kept squeezing off wild rounds until a flashbang turned his world white. And then it was over. Shouting, zip ties, men face down in the dirt with the fight gone out of them. That was when she saw him. A man stood in the open doorway of the main house, hands already raised, untouched by any of it. No weapon, no dust on him. Tailored shirt with the sleeves rolled, a watch catching the early light, and an expression that said the gunfire had been somebody else's poor decision. "Down! On your knees!" Zara advanced, rifle trained center mass. He knelt, smoothly, like he was granting a favor. "You're not one of Omar's," she said, circling behind him. Omar's men wore their nerves on their skin. This one's pulse, when she gripped his wrists, was slow as Sunday. "No," he agreed. "Your men shot at me anyway. I'd like that noted somewhere." She cuffed him and hauled him up. He was taller than she'd braced for, and he rose without resistance, turning his head just enough to look at her. Really look. Like the raid, the smoke, the men shouting in 3 languages behind them had all gone quiet, and she was the only thing left in the compound worth his attention. "Name," she demanded. "Kang Ji-ho." A pause. "Yours is Bennett. Sergeant Z. Bennett." He read it off her name tape like he was memorizing it for later use. "Korean national, armed compound, active smuggling operation. You're having a very bad morning, Mr. Kang." "Am I?" She marched him toward the transport, and he let her, matching her pace as if they were simply walking together. "A woman just held a rifle on me, and I learned her name. I've had worse mornings." "Keep talking. It all goes in my report." "Good," he said, ducking into the vehicle. "Then you'll have to write about me." She slammed the door. Through the dusty window, his eyes found hers and held, calm, certain, patient in a way that had nothing to do with the cuffs. Zara had arrested smugglers, arms dealers, men who spat and men who wept. Not one of them had ever looked at her like the arrest was the beginning of something instead of the end. The air conditioning in the interrogation container had died an hour ago, and Kang Ji-ho still hadn't broken a sweat. Zara had. She could feel it at her collar, at her spine, and she hated that he'd noticed, because he noticed everything. 40 minutes of questions, and he'd answered each one while studying her, like she was the file and he was the interrogator. "Let's try again." She flattened her palms on the table. A businessman from Seoul doesn't fly into a war zone to drink tea with Rashid Omar. He does if Omar has something of his. Weapons? People. The word landed flat and hard, first crack in all that polish. 11 Korean workers, contracted for a construction project in Kabul, rerouted, sold. Omar holds them in the tunnels under the old city and prices them like cargo. I came to buy them back. Zara kept her face blank. It matched. The chatter about foreign captives, Omar's sudden liquidity, the tunnels her unit couldn't get clearance to enter. It matched too well to be a story invented in handcuffs. And what are 11 strangers to a man with your kind of watch? Not strangers. My people. From my district in Seoul. He leaned back as far as the chain allowed. Their families came to me because your governments filed reports and moved on. I don't move on. So you're a philanthropist? I'm a man who collects what belongs to him, Sergeant. All of it. Always. The container hummed with heat. She should have stepped out, gotten water, broken whatever this was that kept thickening between them. She stayed. Your file came back, she said. Kang Ji-ho, 26, import-export. Interpol has a folder on you thick enough to stop around, and not one charge that ever stuck. You read the whole thing. He sounded pleased. Fast reader, or was I interesting? You're a detainee. I'm the most honest man you've spoken to in this country, and you know it. That's what's bothering you. He tilted his head. It's not the heat making you tap your finger like that. Her finger stopped. His mouth curved. Here's what happens next, he continued, quiet and even. Soul makes calls. Your command gets uncomfortable. By Thursday, I walk out of here, and you'll have spent 3 days learning everything about me. I want that. I want to be something you can't file away. You overestimate your importance, Mr. Kang. Then look at me and say you'll forget my face. She looked at him. The silence went on 2 beats too long, and they both heard it. Zara gathered her folder and stood. Water will be brought to you. Sergeant. His voice caught her at the door, low, certain. When I walk out of here, I'm not leaving this country without my people, or without seeing you again. She let the door bang shut behind her. Through the metal, she could have sworn she heard him settle back, satisfied, like a man who'd just signed a deal. He walked free on Thursday, exactly as he'd promised, and by Saturday, Kang Ji-ho had become Zara Bennett's most persistent problem. The release order came down from levels above her pay grade, stamped and expedited, her commanding officer muttering about soul and diplomatic pressure. Zara watched Ji-ho collect his watch and belt from the duty desk, certain that was the end of it. It wasn't. He surfaced first at the bazaar checkpoint where her unit ran security, buying dates from a stall directly in her line of sight, unhurried, as if the whole market existed for his errand. Then, at the district council meeting, seated among contractors, eyes finding hers the moment she entered. Then outside the base gate at dusk, leaning against a dusty Land Cruiser, like Patience was a place he lived. You're following me, she said, crossing to him because ignoring him had failed twice already. I'm conducting business. Your country posted you in the middle of it. He offered her a paper cone of dates. She didn't take it. He didn't seem discouraged. Though I'd follow you. I want that understood. That's called stalking, Mr. Kang. It's called interest, Sergeant Bennett. I'm told I do it too intensely. He set the dates on the hood between them, a small surrender. But tonight, this is professional. Omar moved my people. The tunnels under the old city, the section beneath the carpet market. Your patrols have been circling the wrong entrance for a week. Zara went still. That intel was classified. How do you know where our patrols? Because I watch everything that matters to me. And right now, that's Omar, my 11 people, and the soldier who arrested me. He said it plainly, 3 items on the same list. Omar wants a buyer's meeting. Underground, his terms, 6 days from now. I'm telling you because I want your unit there when it happens. You want military backup for a Mafia transaction. I want witnesses, leverage, and no bloodshed. Money solves Omar. Your presence keeps him honest. He paused. And I want you specifically behind me, where I can account for you. I don't need accounting for. No, he agreed, and something shifted in his voice, dropped its armor. You need nothing from anyone. I've checked. You've been in this country 8 months, and no one has once asked what you need." He picked up the cone of dates and pressed it into her hand, closing her fingers around the paper before she could object. "I'm asking. Get the clearance, Sergeant. Bring your lieutenant, bring your whole unit, but be there." He got into the Land Cruiser and was gone before she assembled a reply. Zara stood at the gate as the dust settled, holding dates she hadn't accepted, warm from his hand. She ate one on the walk back to the barracks and told herself it meant absolutely nothing. She wrote the clearance request that night anyway. The tunnels under the old city swallowed sound, light, and Zara's certainty in that order. Her unit moved through the Carpet Market's hidden stairwell in single file, weapon lights cutting the dark. The passage opened into something older than any map. Stone arches, hanging lanterns, crates stacked into corridors. Omar's underground market, running beneath the feet of a city that pretended not to know. Kang Ji-ho stood at the center of it in a black suit, 2 of his own men flanking a steel case of money. He looked carved out of the lantern light, and his eyes found Zara the second she cleared the stairwell. Checked her, head to boots, like confirming a fact that mattered. Lieutenant Marcus Cole came down behind her. "Stay close, Bennett," Cole murmured, a hand briefly at her shoulder. "Tight quarters. I've got your 6. The temperature of Ji-ho's gaze changed. It moved to Cole's hand, to Cole, and flattened into something Zara had not seen in him before. Not anger exactly, arithmetic. "Sergeant Bennett positions where I discussed," Ji-ho said, tone pleasant, absolute. "Behind me. Lieutenant, you'll want the stairwell. It's the only exit that matters." "I position my own people," Cole said. "Then position them well." Ji-ho's smile didn't reach anything. "But she stands where I can see her." Zara stepped between the 2 before it grew teeth. Nobody stands anywhere until Omar shows. Omar showed. He came through the far arch with 6 men and 11 exhausted Koreans roped in a line, and Zara heard Ji-ho's breath change at the sight of them. The first crack in him all night. The exchange began clean. The case opened, Omar's man counted. Then Omar smiled and said the number had grown. Double. The market was hungry this season. "We agreed on terms," Ji-ho said quietly. "Terms breathe, my friend." "Then breathe carefully, because I brought your price, and I also brought the account numbers your brothers in Karachi use to hide money from you. Skim confirmed, 3 years running." Ji-ho let the silence work. "The original amount, and I forget what I know. Refuse, and they'll learn what you know by morning." Omar's jaw moved. Money against blood, and money won. But one of his men, young and misreading the room, grabbed the rope line and yanked a hostage back. A rifle came up. Shouting cracked the dark in 3 languages. In the surge, Zara moved toward the hostages, and the panicking man swung his weapon toward the motion, toward her. She never finished raising her own. Ji-ho crossed the space in 2 strides and put his body squarely between her and the muzzle, arms spread, spine straight, unarmed. "Omar," he said, deadly calm. "Leash him." Omar barked an order. The rifle dropped. The tunnel exhaled. Ji-ho turned, took Zara's face in both hands, thumb tracing her cheekbone once. "Intact," he breathed, to himself, not her. Behind them, Cole watched and understood exactly what he was seeing. 11 people walked out of the tunnels alive. and Kang Ji-ho didn't sleep for 2 days, making sure they stayed that way. Zara heard it all secondhand. The chartered flight, the medical checks, the families in Seoul waiting on a tarmac. Her unit's report called it a successful joint recovery operation. Cole's addendum called Ji-ho's conduct irregular. Zara's own hands, when she typed her statement, hovered a long time over the part where a man had made himself a wall between her and a bullet. She had 4 days left in country. He found her on the second one, at the overlook post above the wadi where she went to be alone, which meant he'd learned that too. He climbed the last of the slope at dusk. No car, no men. Dust on his expensive shoes. "You're leaving Thursday," he said. "You're not supposed to know my rotation schedule." "There are many things I'm not supposed to do." He stopped an arm's length away. The desert stretched out below them, going gold, then rust. "I flew 11 people home yesterday. Their families wept on my shoulders, and I felt nothing but this. 4 days. 3 now." "Ji-ho." "I've been reasonable," he said, and his voice was low and even, and not reasonable at all. "I told myself, she wears the uniform, she has orders. There is a whole architecture to her life, and you are not in the blueprints. I am a patient man, Zara. I negotiate. I wait. I win by waiting." He shook his head slowly. "And then that idiot pointed a rifle at you, and I learned I am not patient. Not about you. I stepped in front of it without one thought in my head, and I have built my life on never doing anything without thought." "I didn't ask you to do that." "No, you'd never ask anyone for anything. It's the first thing I noticed about you." He came a half step closer. "So I am asking. That's the entire confession, Sergeant. The man who collects what belongs to him, standing on a hill, asking." "Asking what, exactly?" "Don't disappear into that airplane and become a name I'm not allowed to remember." His hand rose, slow enough to refuse, and tucked back the strand of hair the wind kept dragging across her face. His fingers stayed at her jaw. "Come to Seoul, when the uniform lets you, when it's your choice, made freely, because that's the only version of you worth having, the one who chooses." The honest answer sat in her chest, heavy and terrifying. "I have a career, a country, a life that doesn't fit inside yours." "Then bring it, all of it. I have room." She laughed, unsteady, and his thumb caught the corner of her smile like he'd been waiting weeks for it. When she finally kissed him, because she kissed him, that fact would be hers forever. It was brief and fierce, and tasted like every argument she was losing with herself. She stepped back first. "I'm not promising you anything, Kang Ji-ho." "I know." The look on his face was pure certainty. "Promise it to yourself. I'll be at the door when you do." 8 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days after Zara Bennett flew out of Afghanistan, she stood in front of a door in Seoul, with her whole life in one suitcase. Her contract had ended in spring. She'd let it. The army offered re-enlistment and a promotion, and she'd sat with the paperwork for 3 nights before understanding, finally, that she'd already made this decision on a hillside above a wadi. She just needed the months to catch up to it. He hadn't crowded her. That was the thing that undid her, in the end. A man built entirely of pursuit had sent no planes, made no calls to her chain of command, pulled none of the strings she knew he held. Just letters. Real paper, arriving at the base every second week, in handwriting that got looser as the months passed. The 11 workers, all home. One's daughter had named a stray cat after him, which he found undignified. The district in winter. The exact shade the sky turned over the Han River in the evening, which he claimed, without evidence, was her colour. The last letter contained only an address and one line. The door is never locked to you. It never was. She knocked anyway. Some things a soldier does properly. The door opened, and Kang Ji-ho stood in it, wearing no armour at all. No suit, no watch, sleeves pushed up, 26 years old, and briefly, visibly stunned. She watched him take in the suitcase, the civilian clothes, the absence of a return ticket in her posture, and she watched certainty rebuild itself in his face, like sunrise. "You didn't write that you were coming," he said. "You'd have met me at the airport with a motorcade." "I wanted to arrive as myself." "Noted." He stepped back to let her in, then didn't wait. He pulled her over the threshold and kissed her the way the desert had never given them room for. Unhurried, thorough, one hand at her jaw and the other flat against her back, like he was confirming she was structural. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead on hers. "How long do I have you?" "I left the army, Ji-ho. There's no clock. There's just this." She held his gaze so there could be no mistake. "I'm choosing it. Freely. That was your condition." "That was my condition." His voice came out rough. He lifted her hand and pressed his mouth to her knuckles, to the wrist that had once locked cuffs around his. "Then hear mine now. I don't do halves, Zara. If you stay, I'll spend every year I get making it impossible for you to regret it. You'll never carry anything alone again. Not luggage, not grief, not a single quiet need you're too proud to name. And I arrest you if you ever get stupid about the law again. You're the only one who ever managed it." He smiled against her fingers. "Marry me. This year. I've waited with tremendous dignity, and I'm finished." She laughed and said yes. The suitcase stayed. So did she. And on a spring evening over the Han River, under a sky he swore was her colour, Zara Bennett married the man she'd once put in handcuffs. Both of them home, both of them certain. Nothing left unfinished between them.